Inside the Birds is back. What's going on, everybody? It's Geoff, Mosher, and Adam Caplan here for another Inside the Birds. Now, Adam, you and I are here, relatively healthy, doing well. Plan to make sure we see Sunday's game between the Eagles and the Giants. Can't say the same about a lot of Eagles and Giants as far as being
Yeah.
healthy and making it to that game. And that feels like the closer we get to game time, who knows what's going to pop up.
Yeah, you just mentioned the pop-up. I mean, both teams have had the added some injuries, and one big one we're going to get to the Eagles, and we'll kind of explain how injury reports work. We don't talk enough about this. We'll explain to you what happens when a guy's added and why the player is added and so forth. So we'll get to that. No question. Injuries are going to be a factor in this game. There's no doubt about it. It's Giants are a little bit more up in the air, where the Eagles, we have a pretty good idea, except one that popped up. The dreaded pop-up injury during the week, very strange. And it's a big one. We'll get to that. But yeah, you're right. Both teams are certainly dealing with a lot of injuries.
Yeah, certainly. I want to ask you that. I want to start the show off with this before we sort of, get into
Yeah.
that part of it. And then we're going to obviously break this down even more comprehensively with Greg Cosell on our pregame show Sunday. But have you been like me sort of wrestling with this game and what it might look like and who you think is going to win and just like
Yep.
the tenor that the game is going to take?
Yeah, and this is the first NFC East game for the Eagles, and it's kind of like, okay, well, Goddard, Mailata, some defensive injuries, then you got the Giants have got all sorts of injuries on both sides of the football. It's like, yeah, do the Eagles have a better roster? Yes. Have the better quarterback? Yes. But because of the sort of extenuating circumstances here, or mitigating circumstances, it's concerning. It's a little bit harder to pick. I mean, heck, I know you and Greg did the pregame show last week. I wasn't available, but I was definitely picking the Eagles. There was no question. This one is intriguing in a way because the Giants are a little bit better than we thought. We just mentioned all the injuries, so this is not give me, as you were telling me this week. Better be careful thinking the Eagles are a clear favorite here, clear winner. I agree with you. That they're no shoe in at all.
Yeah, yeah, there were a couple of games on the NFL schedule. This is like last week was an interesting week because I think there were 8 road favorites, and it was just clear. You looked at the schedule last year, and the road teams were just overall better. This week, there are so many strange matchups like this Eagles Giants one where I'm like, I'd just stay away from that one if I were better because there's just some weird stuff that goes on in the NFL. But yeah, I'm trying to think like you make the point that is very accurate. The Eagles have far more talent on the field than the Giants, far more blue chip talent, especially than the Giants. But you can have made that point about a couple of teams the Eagles have played this year, and the results have not been what you thought. They obviously are trying to find themselves, and the Giants are also trying to figure their who they are out as well. So and I always say this: Eagles Giants for some reason at MetLife is always a wacky game. I'm surprised the forecast doesn't call for rain because it usually is pouring
Yeah,
rain in
exactly.
that game.
Strange that we're getting all this good weather again. It was sunny
Yeah.
in Philly this week, and we're gonna next week's gonna be in the 70s. So, yeah, it usually it's the wind. Going to MetLife and the old Meadowlands. It's still the same complex. You're always concerned about wind, but yeah, look, it's their first game in the NFC East. He's always taken a life of their own. We've talked about this now for what, 7 years we've done this show, and how these NFC East games, man, you never really know. Right when it seems obvious, it's not.
Right.
That's the thing we've learned the hard way of trying to pick these games. Now, last week, by the way, before we move on, for Sports Grid, I have to pick every game by the number. I went 11-3 versus the number.
Nice.
I picked almost all favorites. See, this is the problem with it, right? I happen to like a lot of favorites this week, and I looked at it, I'm like, come on, don't I have like 3 or 4 underdogs I like? No, I don't. It worked last week, but I'm in trouble this week. I had a bad feeling some of these dogs are going to cover.
Oh boy. Well, it should be an interesting
Like,
week in
yeah.
the NFL. So the Eagles have some injuries that are concern, and some of them we know about. Some of them popped up, and overall, offensively, if you're going to say where are the Giants stronger, clearly they're stronger and have more talent on defense than they do on offense. And so this is not a great time for the Eagles themselves to be once again hurting offensively, Adam, with Dallas, with Jordan Mailata going to be out, and same thing with Dallas Goddard and some others.
Yeah, it's tough. Let's get started. We'll do offense first. There's a
Mhm.
lot to get through here. So We want to go as fast as we can, but we want to make sure we cover everything. So Anaya Smith, right? When he was in training camp, once he got over his stress fracture, he's returning punts in camp. Yes, yeah, he struggles, drops, and he got better late in camp. But he's a slot receiver, punt returner. Now he's ready to go after his second injury. But the way that we understand it, when guys are out for months, they want the players to have what's called a ramp up period. It's no different than training camp ramp up period. The league will tell you the more time you get when you limit practice reps early,
Hmm.
the better long term the players are. And now, also, when a player's been out for several weeks, it's a conditioning thing. It's one thing to work out with the trainers, but it's another thing to actually be in practice. So Smith returned last week, no issues. The question now is, when is he going to be needed? Because Cooper DeJean looked very good as a punt returner. Now I know he's their starting nickel. That's something I'll have to wrestle with going forward. But right now, Anaya Smith, they have five receivers. One of them did not dress Paris Campbell because they went heavy 12 because of Cleveland's defensive line. So right now, Anaya Smith is really not needed.
Not needed, but it would be nice for them, and I'm sure it's in the plan if he continues to do well at practice. It would be nice for them to have a natural fit at the slot receiver who
Yep.
can go in there and not be telltale. Because again, Jahan Dotson is not a natural slot. They're not using any one natural slot receiver. They've used Devontae there, they've used Dotson there, they've used AJ Brown. What you're seeing is a lot of formational diversity that you would probably ordinarily see anyway with a Kellen Moore offense, but being at the you don't want to put Devontae in the traffic too much, and AJ's had some knee. You would like to be able to. I would think that you drafted Anaya Smith, thinking that he's a better player than what Paris Campbell is right now. So if he could get to the number 4 receiver at some point in the next few weeks, that would be pretty helpful, I would think.
Yeah, I think long term, right? Past
Hmm.
this season, Jahan Dotson can imagine he would be back after the season, although they have him under contract. I mean, he's going to have to do better to earn a roster spot. And Paris Campbell's contract's up. Yeah, Anaya Smith, who's really physically strong. He's bigger than scouting term. He plays bigger than his listed size. You and I have talked to some people scouting with other teams who really liked him. He can be a gadget player, decent short area quickness. Doesn't have the long speed, but pretty physical guy. So this guy could be interesting. Whether it happens this season or not, I mean, odds are against it because he's missed so much time. But for the long term, he's got a chance to contribute, no question.
All right. Well, so at the tight end position, we know Goddard is dealing with the hamstring. He hasn't practiced this week. He's not going to expected to play, barring some kind of miracle.
Yes, I would
Yeah,
say, yeah, for what
yeah,
we've heard,
little Mr. Miyagi.
yeah.
Albert O. He was designated for return into the 21-day window. Is it right? Right
Correct. Yep.
this week. So that's a nice. I gotta be. I'll be the first to admit it. I forgot about him. I forgot he was on IR.
He, yeah, I believe he had core muscle surgery, I believe. So anyway, and we're in what week 7. So yeah, it's usually 6 weeks anyway for that
Mhm.
for play to return at the earliest. So Albert Oku Ebunam, who
Nice job.
is an athlete but doesn't block very well. All of a sudden, they have all these tight ends. They have EJ Jenkins on the practice squad, right?
Yep.
Uzama surprisingly brought back after not a very good training camp.
Hmm.
Someone's going to have to be added to the roster. You can't go into the game with 2 tight ends.
I gotta think it's gonna be. Well, I was gonna say Uzama because they brought him back, but maybe
Yeah.
not. Maybe EJ Jenkins. I mean, he's
Who's-
been with the team here
Yeah.
for the start, so he theoretically knows more of the offense and is younger. And yeah, I would actually think I would be surprised if it wasn't EJ Jenkins.
We'll see. I'm with you. I go back and forth on that one, but that who's coming in is only going to be blocking because Calcaterra, this will free up Calcaterra to run routes more. Stall's a Y, he'll be inside.
Hmm.
Someone's got to help Stall out and Calcaterra out. They need a third tight end. Now, the interesting thing is we'll talk more about this with Greg in the pregame show. I know the Giants secondary is playing better. It's improved. It's still, I question how good it is, but it's definitely getting better. What will be their approach? We saw a lot of 12 last week. What will be the approach from Kellen Moore? We'll see.
Yeah. So it was weird because they played almost the entire first half in 12, and then the second half they played a lot more. Well, they played more 11 because it wasn't
They
like an
had.
80-20 thing, but
Yeah.
yeah, it was surprising they opened it up there. in the second half. Left tackle without Mailata, looks like Fred Johnson will be that guy we imagine. I've been thinking all week since you talked about how Tyler Steen came in and played well at right guard and how Becton has played left tackle before. I wonder if there's a leash situation here where
Oh,
if it does not look good for Fred, I don't know why it wouldn't, but because he's not terrible. I mean, there are times where he doesn't look great, but there are also times he stepped in and done a nice job. So you imagine that he's under the watchful eye here. If he's struggling, you can put a tight end next to him, or you can have a little chip on that side. I think it would have to be really, really catastrophic for them to all of a sudden make an in-game move there. But I've seen
yeah,
that happen before. So
sure. And then who really either he's dressed for one game or zero of them. Darian Kennard is still on the roster. He's their back. He's a backup right tackle.
yeah,
And you also have Jack Driscoll, who was elevated last week, which was kind of surprising. He's back in the practice squad. So by the way, they have till Saturday at 4 p.m. Eastern to make any roster moves. So we'll see what they do in terms of having depth up there. But yeah, this is a big deal for Fred Johnson. There's no question about it. Who's been sort of the creation here of Jeff Stoutland's special. He's invested a lot of time in Fred. I know Fred's spoken highly of Stout, so we'll see how this goes.
Stalin really loves his guys, right? I mean, not a lot of
Of course.
situations
Yeah.
would you see a Jack Driscoll who gets cut from the team that he's trying to make come back to a team who already kept three guys who can play tackle, and yet last week they're going to elevate. Like Darian Kennard had a pretty good preseason. He's been here the whole
Yeah.
time. He earned
Yeah.
his way to a spot, and then all of a sudden it's like, nah, we're going to go right back to Driscoll, who didn't exactly play great in his last few stints with the Eagles. So it's kind of
Yep.
interesting.
Yeah, that's Stout's guy, no question about it. Yeah,
It,
that's
where's
you're
Brett
right.
Toth?
He loves this guy. Who there have been other guys. He coached Vandervelde, right? It wasn't was Stout.
Yes, he did. Yes.
Yeah, it is amazing. We one of these days we're gonna have to look it up all Stouts guys over the years. It's like a poster, of his. We're not talking about the high end players. We're talking about the lower end players who, Suapeta, nice story, right? Unfortunately, got hurt with Tampa.
Yep.
Guys like that, it kind of came out of nowhere. Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe Brett Toth will be the guy who gets the
Oh,
elevation.
where is he? Is he?
On the practice squad, is he not?
Oh, is he? Okay, I totally forgot. I lost. How many times has he been on and off the roster? Gee,
That's
wow.
who I thought you were going to say before you
Yeah.
said
Oh, Toth.
Vanderbilt.
Yeah, yeah. I
Toth.
know that. That's definitely one of his guys. This guy won't go away. He's like the thing that wouldn't leave from Saturday Night Live.
Yeah.
Keeps coming back.
All right. Let's go to defense because a real big concern on Thursday as Jalen Carter was not practicing with the team. So today is Friday. They'll have one last session. We'll see if maybe he gets back on. But that was a concern when you see Jalen Carter just randomly, as you always say, the pop-up injury happening there and not part of practice.
Yeah. See, he was not added. Sometimes teams will I get emails from most of the teams. So every once in a while, a team will update their injury report, like 2 or 3 hours later. They add a guy who maybe got treatment after practice, and they have to add the guy. Well, if
Right.
Carter was not added after Wednesday's practice, he was added after Thursday's practice because he didn't practice Thursday. Now,
Hmm.
Friday, if he's even limited, the chances are he's going to play. It's just the way it is. It's not absolute, but if a guy who didn't practice Thursday gets some limited work in, he'll play. If he
Hmm.
doesn't Friday, I'd be very concerned. And he's a younger player. Coaches are more apt to not to suggest to the head coach, hey, you know what? He didn't practice today. He didn't practice yesterday. Unless he goes to the walkthrough tomorrow, I don't think we should play him. Now, whereas a veteran, they got so much leeway. I mean, even if they don't practice, only go through the walkthrough, they let them warm up Sunday, 2.5 hours before the game. If the workout goes well, they play the guy. So this is tough. Now, this is where Moro Jomo comes in. That's his backup, who's a nice player. Then here's another one. Now, this guy's not played for them. I don't know Byron Young, a pop-up injury, who was claimed off waivers, right, from the Raiders.
Hmm.
If he's healthy enough and Carter can't play, chances are he could be active. So it's kind of
By the way,
again.
I believe they were in pads on Wednesday. Didn't Nick Sirianni say they were going to be in pads
I
Wednesday?
don't know. Did he say that? Okay.
I thought they were in pads Wednesday,
Okay.
and then when you see so here's what I wonder. Let's say you get banged up a little bit in a Wednesday practice, but
Mhm.
you make it through, but afterward, you're like, oh, trainer, my shoulder's really hurting from that practice. You get treatment on it. You don't have to be on the injury report because you practiced in full that day, but you could have still hurt. Like you wake up the next morning and your shoulder was like, oh man.
Yes, exactly.
And
Yeah.
I'm
Yes.
not reporting it. I don't know what happened to Jalen Carter, but
Yeah.
I'm saying when you see a guy practice on Wednesday, but not on Thursday, typically something happened in practice late. Obviously, if he left the Wednesday practice, then he's got to be on the report. But if he makes it through, but he
Yep.
wakes up and he's like, "Oh man,
That's it. Right.
yeah, that's typically the case."
And if he lifted Thursday morning, if he pulled a shoulder, that's
Yep.
got to go in the injury report. Yeah, that has happened, by the way. Yeah, that
Yeah.
that can happen. So,
Yep.
by the way, Byron Young, who didn't practice Thursday, was added. He's got a hamstring injury. So, right now, if Carter and Young are out, right?
Mm-hmm.
So Booker's the backup nose. Ojomo backs up Carter and Williams
Yep.
as at the 4I or whoever they're lined up. So, I mean, the good thing is they have enough depth. Now,
Yeah.
on the practice squad, the only D tackle they have is Gabe Hall, who really was disappointing in training camp.
Mm-hmm.
So, look, it's a little problematic. They had very good young depth, and now it's right now it could be tested, but today is the day. We got to see what happens.
Yeah, this will be a very big practice. You're right. The depth is being tested. Thankfully, Milton Williams, who did not practice on Wednesday, was able to do something on Thursday,
He
and we'll
should go.
see today. Yeah, he should be able to go. So that's good. But this is a rotational defense, as most are. And interestingly, what you said about Booker, because what did Greg Cosell say with us on Inside the Tape? He said he didn't want to go too strongly on Booker, but he said you can make an argument that some of his tape is better than even Jordan Davis's tape because he can play a little bit more versatilely. He doesn't have to just be a rundown defender, and he's got a lot of jump off the ball that you've seen, which goes back to training camp. He's been impressive.
Yeah, he's not your typical nose. When I watched him at training camp, I it's funny. I thought he was a tight end because he's tall, and then when I got closer, I'm like, okay, all right, I see. He's a little wide. Yeah, he's 6'3" plus and over a little bit over 300, but pretty athletic guy. Was a
Yeah.
fifth rounder for the Texans in 2022, and he just didn't impress them. In fact, they cut him after 1 year, which is never a good sign. So, but he's been a great story. Good, and remember, the Eagles brought him into the practice squad last season, and really a good job by him, and good job by Clint Hurt, the D line coach, who's certainly had an impact. Well, on Ojomo and Booker, this we should mention that. That's a
Hmm.
really good job.
Definitely. Now, the other big one worth watching is Darius Slay, who has not been practicing because of the knee.
Well, limited Thursday, limited Wednesday, I should say, limited Wednesday, and then he didn't
Right.
practice Thursday. Though that could have been planned, by the way. Just so you
Hmm.
know, sometimes clubs, a guy does some work Wednesday, they see what they need to see, they looked okay, and then they back off the next day. But today's a big day. Again, if he's limited, I'm sure he'll play. But if he doesn't practice Friday today, I'd be a little concerned.
I guess what perked my radar on him based on our conversation about Wednesday. If that was a padded practice and he practiced in it, it would be kind of strange because he was already dealing with the knee. But then
Yeah.
not to practice Thursday would make you think you put this guy through a padded practice when he was already kind of got a hobbled knee and now he's not practicing on Thursday. What happened? So I don't know.
We'll
Obviously
talk in the
not there,
pregame show.
but
Yeah,
yeah,
we'll
yeah,
we'll
we'll
talk
have it
about
all in
it.
the
We'll
pregame
find
show.
out. We'll ask Andrew. Andrew would know if they were in pads or not.
There you go. Jalix Hunt is expected to play. He was dealing with an ankle injury.
Yep.
And who's the other guy? Oh, Oren Burks. Oren Burks, inside linebacker. This is like the second week in a row, right? Wasn't he on the injury report last week?
Well, here's the thing with him. He had the knee injury, which caused him to miss about 3 weeks in training camp. Got hurt the first day of training camp,
Right.
and they have all these linebackers, but they've got, other than Bond, they've not got the consistent play that they're looking for. And this is a guy, Burks, who's a veteran. He's the one veteran of the group that we were thought could kind of have some sort of an impact, not a huge impact, but kind of help them. But he's been in and out of the injury report. Yeah. So last week, no, Burks was not on it week
He
6.
was not on. Okay,
Yep.
maybe it was the week before. I remember he popped up recently on an injury report, and
Correct. It was
yeah, yeah.
earlier this season. Yes.
All right, so we'll see. I mean, obviously, he hasn't been asked yet to have to play a significant role or at any role, so we'll see the status on him. And do you think this is the week? I don't see why you wouldn't. If he's ready to play, it's time to get Sidney Brown on the field. I mean, unless they're seeing something that they don't think is ready or just want to buy the entire 21-day window just to because that follows the plan. But why wouldn't you want to get the guy ramped up, get him on special teams, and see what you can do?
That would be it, really, honestly, because right now Gardner Johnson and Blankenship are healthy.
Right.
McCollum's the three. Eventually, Sidney Brown will be the three,
Mm-hmm.
and they could play. It also helped them play big nickel, which is something we saw in training camp. By the way, they started doing that. So, and because Maddox is part of that group, but now obviously he's not. So and Maddox is an emergency safety as well, and he's now backing up DeJean. So yeah, right now, that would to me his only impact right now would be on special teams. That most likely will be it. And he also needed a big ramp up period because again he missed 9 months. So
Right.
though he look boy, I'm going back to August watching him run on the side. I was like, wow, he looks pretty good, but you don't know until you get there. So I there and he's another guy. They have till Saturday at 4 p.m. Eastern to activate him. Now the question would be because they are at 53, correct? Because they filled the
They are at 53, right? Because
yep
when they signed Paris Campbell after releasing
yep.
Devin White, they were at 53.
All right. Well, so if I doubt that both will come off this week, but if one does, right? We're
Mm-hmm.
talking about the two guys who are on the reserve list because we mentioned we mentioned Byron Young last 2 weeks. Well, now they've got the Jalen Carter issue and a Byron Young issue because he's hurt. You have to be careful. You want to have enough guys. We know BG and Nickel could play inside because he's done that. And again, they only have Gabe Hall in the practice squad, who's got 3 elevations, but that's something they got to get through here. I mean, who
Yep.
else would you think? Who
Well,
else
they
would you think?
released a defensive player, right? In when they released what's his face, Devin White, and then they signed an offensive player. I don't know what the balance is right now as far as 25, 25, 26, 24. But
Hmm.
I would think they're a little heavier on offense with all the receivers that they have. They have 3 tight ends now on the 53. They have a lot of linemen because they signed Nick Gates. So I don't have the number breakdown in front of me, but I would think that they're a little bit top heavier on the offensive side than defensive side, especially since the Devin White release. So I would imagine if you're bringing Sidney Brown back, you're releasing an offensive player. And I thought it was
Gates?
pretty interesting that Nick Gates was
That's it.
inactive again.
Yeah.
So, and that they're not going to play him as the backup center, or at least they didn't when they had the opportunity and they played Dickerson. So now that doesn't mean Gates is the guy. I mean, they've got a couple of backup offensive linemen who aren't really doing anything right now, but that would be my guess.
I would say the candidates would be Gates, Kennard, because he hasn't
Hmm.
played. Then you've got Eli Ricks, by the way, was added to the injury report. He was at healthy and active last week. And their other corners,
I would
you've
say
got
Maddox
oh,
potentially.
really?
Well,
Maddox.
you could only because you have Cooper playing nickel, and you
Yeah.
could theoretically play Tristan in dime if you wanted to,
Yeah, but who would be the
or even
backup
Sydney.
nickel? Yeah, but who would be the backup nickel? If DeJean got hurt, who would be the backup nickel?
That's fair. That's fair. I guess
Well, it could be
you would
Gardner
not want
Johnson,
Tristan.
and then if
Yeah,
it's
but not that. I don't know if we're like they wouldn't want Sydney to have to be like a start. A number
yeah, it'd be
two or
too
number three
early,
safety
right?
in
Yeah,
his
yeah,
first game
obviously,
back. Yeah.
yeah, because they don't want to play him. I mean, I don't know how much he could even play right now because you got to see how if the knee gets typically when you come back from ACL reconstruction,
Hmm.
players have told me over the years that the knee gets tired the first time they get back, even although they feel good. It's the endurance of that knee because it's got to sort of teach itself,
Hmm.
get back to where it was. So yeah, it's a little bit of a quagmire, man. They got some roster tango here. So right now their corners are Slay, Ringo, Mitchell, Rogers are four, Ricks is five. DeJean is not. We're not counting DeJean as a corner. He's a nickel, as Vic Fangio would say. We don't want him to yell at us. So, and Maddox is a nickel. He's not counted as a corner. So they have 5 outside corners. You really only need to dress 4.
Hmm.
Ricks is probably would be unlikely to be claimed off waivers.
Ricks is on the 53.
Yeah, yeah,
Oh, I forgot about that.
yeah. He was inactive last
Oh,
week. Yeah,
he would definitely
yeah.
be a
Oh, I
candidate
thought
for
you
them.
heard. Okay, yeah.
I'm sorry. For some reason I thought I was on the practice squad, so I was a little confused. But yeah,
No,
no,
no. In fact,
that would make sense.
remember before Vic went to his diatribe about the difference between nickel and
Hmm.
outside corner.
Yep.
We were counting because we
Right.
knew
We're
that
one
they
group.
wanted DeGene as a nickel, but again, we didn't know how Vic sees it.
Hmm.
So we were counting Max and Cooper as corners, and they're not in
Right.
Vic's world. So that lowers the number.
Sure.
So it'll be interesting. It'll be certainly be interesting.
Yeah, yeah, certainly Ricks would be a candidate. All right. So that's the injury situation for the Eagles. There are a couple of guys who are off of the report, which is always good news for them. AJ Brown, Devontae Smith, Johnny Wilson off the injury
The
report.
blocking receiver. We have to call him a blocking receiver.
Blocking
We should,
receiver. No,
we should
you can't call him a receiver. You got to call him
no,
a blocker, right?
blocking receiver. Yes. Yeah,
Blocker.
we have to. We're doing it for Vic now. We're doing it for Vic.
Lane Johnson, good to go. He's ever since he had that concussion, and
Yeah,
of
no
course,
setbacks.
yeah,
Thankfully.
the one that was really you thought might linger would be N'Kobe Dean with the ankle, but he's fine, and Reed Blankenship is fine. He had the illness a couple
Yep.
weeks ago too, so he's good.
Yep.
All that's good to go. All right, we will get into some Giants news in a second. All right, and before we move on, we keep getting ready for the NBA regular season to be here, the Sixers to be here, and listen, there's nothing like going to an NBA game and hearing and seeing that live action. You see the celebrities in the front row. You hear that squeaking of the sneakers as they start to run up and down the court. That's when you know you're really at an NBA game, and it is an awesome experience. Now, if you want to get to a Sixers game or any NBA game near you this year, you've got to use the Game Time app. It's got this feature that we've been telling you about called Game Time Picks, and it makes getting tickets to see your favorite teams play live even easier because it filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats. You don't have to waste time searching around through thousands of tickets. It can be an excruciating process trying to find tickets through apps. Game Time streamlines it. It makes it very easy because it shows you where the best deals are. They've got these tiers called super deals that let you know where you want to sit and where the best value is. It is an unbelievable experience. It's easy. 2, 3 taps on the app, and you can have the seats that you want, and you'll have seen the view before you buy. You'll have the all-in pricing. There's no hidden fees at the end. It tells you exactly what it's going to cost. And of course, they've got the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. They have event cancellation protection. You're protected against a job loss. And of course, the lowest price guarantee or Game Time credits you 110% of the difference. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time Picks. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code BIRDS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code BIRDS, BIRDS, for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. All right, Adam, before we move on, also, we have had a great week
Mm.
on just both platforms, Patreon platform, this platform, the mainstream one. Ask Greg Cosell was awesome on Tuesday for our Patreon members.
Packed house.
Yeah, packed house. I love
So
that.
nice.
The Ask ITB live stream on Wednesday was great. We have our next Ask an Eagle coming up soon, and it's going to feature Jason Avant. He's going to come on and
Woo!
talk
Thank
about
you,
the wide
Jason.
receiver situation and answer all the questions. So we're looking forward to it. We just have to work out the time and date
Yeah.
on that. We're going to bring back Chuck Pagano for our Chalk Talk series for Patreon. He was so awesome last
Oh,
year.
we told us to follow up with him. So Chuck,
Yeah,
we're following up with you, buddy. He
that's
was
right.
incredible. He great. He was such a good dude. He because remember he took over for Fangio when Fangio became the Broncos head coach. And by the way, I know for a fact he studied Quignon's all 22 for the 33rd team.
Mm-hmm.
So we want to go over that trends in the league, how he sees the Eagles overall, and just a lot of the trends also because I know he sees how coverages change sometimes. So can't wait to talk to Chuck. Should be this coming week.
Yes. And then on top of that, every podcast that we do for Inside the Birds is up early first on Patreon with no ads, ad free, and you get it first, usually the night before. So it's a great advantage to be part of our Patreon community. Sign up at patreon.com/inside the birds. Just real quick, I want to address a comment. We may have had 1 or 2 comments about our commercials in the podcast. If you're listening to the podcast, not watching on YouTube, but just listening through Apple or Amazon or wherever you get podcasts, some people have said the commercials are really loud compared to our voices. So our mics are turned up. We can't get any louder. If the commercials are louder, we don't control that. Those are automatically inserted. Some people have asked about the timing because it might cut me off in the middle of this sentence, and it's out of our control. So I apologize if it's inconvenient for people. But it is not our say. They just insert the commercials where they they see fit. So
We'll
I
let the company,
apologize.
yeah, the company that insert, we'll let them know. But yeah, it's on our end. There's nothing we can do about it. Yes.
There you go. All right, moving on to the Giants. They're a little bit banged
Ooh.
up too, and their personnel, is sort of interesting because of it. There are some situations, I think I remember saying this last year about a team, Adam, where some injuries that this team had allowed them to realize they have maybe some better backups. So the Giants may have discovered at their running back situation that they got a pretty good runner here, a kid out of Purdue. Is it It's Tyrone Tracy, right? That's his name.
Yes, boy. I'll tell you what. When I was in training camp, he suffered. They thought that he might have broken his leg, and it wound up not being that. There
Hmm.
was a lot of speculation, and thankfully, the testing came out good. He only missed a couple days of practice, and I watched him. I happened to be there after he came back, and I was like, "Wow, there's something with this guy. He's going to make the team." And honestly, Devin Singletary's nickname's Motor. I know that the GM and head coach were with him in Buffalo. He's really a 1A. He's not a starting running back. He did a good job for the Texans. Texans didn't want him back. He's
Yeah.
just not a lead back.
No,
So,
he's a reliable back who
yeah,
doesn't fumble, catches the ball decently, runs the ball
durable.
decently.
Yep.
He's a good stabilizer. I like Devin Singletary, but you're right. It's noticeable when he's not there and they put a guy who has some juice or some power in. It's like, oh, okay. There's a little bit of difference there.
Yeah. So Singletary is still limited by his groin injury. Missed the last couple weeks. They'll see what happens today. And that, yeah, and Tyrone Tracy and Eric Gray, Tracy will be the guy if Singletary's out. In fact, it's very clear to me that Tracy's played himself into a role once Singletary's available, because you just said it. It's so easy to watch both players and go, "Wow, Tracy looks like he's on 5 cups of Starbucks," compared to Singletary, who's like a little slower and deliberate.
Yeah,
Tracy's way better.
why does it feel like this is the year that the Eagles chose to be not so great defensively against the run against the backup running backs? I mean, this started against a guy I never even heard of in the opener. Emmanuel Wilson was just tearing
Oh
through,
yeah,
and
that's right.
then the kid Bucky Irving, right, for the
Oh,
Bucks, right, got
Bucks.
him pretty good, and
Yeah.
now you got who was last week? Wasn't there
My guy. I'm
yes,
the only one in this country who started Sean Tucker. It's a true story. John Hansen from fantasypoints.com saw my lineup. I texted it to him because we had to do a
still
show together.
lost.
I lost by a quarter of a point. I literally
That
yelled.
sucks.
I know. I know. But at least boy, that Sean Tucker, man, for fantasy, do not cut the guy, because Todd Bowles was so impressed. He said, we're going to have a three-headed monster, because poor Rashad White, my guy, love him, but he's too mechanical. He's not explosive. Sean Tucker was going to be probably a fourth-round pick, but he had a pretty significant medical issue, but
Mhm.
he's doing great. And you're right. Look, the Eagles' run defense is so inconsistent. Don't make these guys heroes, man. That's the thing that you just mentioned. Emmanuel Wilson out of nowhere.
Out of nowhere. I mean, it was kind of I mean, even Foreman got 30 yards. No, not Foreman, Strong. Pierre Strong averaged 5.4 yards per carry against them in that Browns game. I'm like, come on, it's Pierre Strong. So I don't know. For whatever reason, I mean, listen, the Eagles haven't been good defensively against a lot of people, but backup running backs have hurt them, and we'll see. They'll have to be keyed in on Tyrone Tracy. Is it Tyron or Tyrone?
Tyrone Tracy.
Tyrone Tracy.
Purdue. Yeah.
There's something about New York teams right now with these TT guys, right? So the Giants have Tyrone Tracy. The Mets had that annoying outfielder Tyrone Taylor, and the
Yes,
Jets'
I knew you were
backup
going.
quarterback is Tyrod Taylor, isn't it?
Tyrod or Tyrod,
It's
Tyrod,
Tyrod Taylor.
who's now with no, he's with
I thought he was the
the
Jets'
Jets.
backup. Yeah,
No, Jets. Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah,
that's what I'm
he's
saying. It's
with the
all
Jets.
this. It's a New
Uh-oh.
York thing right now.
Yeah.
All these
So
three
he
New
went
York
from,
teams.
how about Tyrod Taylor moving from the Giants to the Jets? But he stopped correcting people. He said the correct pronunciation is Tyrod,
Yeah.
but pretty good backup, by the way. Good
Yeah,
for
well, you
him that
can't have this
yeah.
many TT guys. Tyrone,
Yeah, I know it is a
Tyrod
little weird.
Taylor, and yeah, yeah. So it's just making me annoyed. Anyway, back to the Giants.
Yeah.
Malik Neighbors. Now it looks like he's going to be good to go with the concussion, but he did. I don't know how this happened. He popped up with a groin injury
Added,
because
yeah,
I'm
pop up.
watching I'm following the Eagles. No, I'm sorry, the Giants beat writers on Twitter, right? And
Yeah.
this is like Thursday. This is his first practice back in full, and he's not wearing it. And he's apparently dunking on every Giants corner in practice, and he was catching this touchdown and catching that touchdown.
Special
And then he shows up with a groin injury. I'm like, how'd that
I,
happen?
I know, and it's weird. He was added after he's out of the concussion protocol, which, by the way, rarely happens before Friday. So he's doing great. Good for him. And he put on a show when I saw him practice against the Vikings. Kind of my mouth dropped. You're doing covering this business for 27 years. I've seen some special receivers. Saw Randy Moss practice. That was pretty special. Tyreek Hill, you and I saw him 2 years ago against the Eagles.
Hmm.
Ridiculous.
Hmm.
Obviously, AJ Brown's ridiculous. Devontae, AJ's pretty cool watching him. But Malik Neighbors put on such a show, and Cosell will talk about it in the pregame. But I've seen the tape, and I know what they're doing. They're moving Neighbors around for freeing him up. He moves a lot better than I thought. Seeing him in person, and it's going to be interesting to see what happens. And yeah, and Neighbors took all his reps. He should go. Barring setback. And Darius Slayton, he's got a
Hmm.
groin injury. They expect him to play. But the big one, once again, Andrew Thomas is down. He has the full-blown Liz Frank injury.
Uh,
So that's a 9-month deal. That's worse than an ACL, man. That rehab's a biatch.
dude, that dude suffered it in the game, went back and finished
How
the
about that?
game with the Liz
Yeah,
Frank. That listen,
that's big
that's
time.
impressive.
Yeah, yeah. And it sucks for them. It really does, because he killed their offensive line last year when he didn't play with a hamstring,
Yeah.
because Evan Neal was awful. He got benched. He's benched now. And so basically, and we talked about this the other day, their plan is Josh Azudu, who really he's really a right tackle guard, but they worked him at left tackle the last couple of years. What he also has been hurt. He's had an ACL injury in his career, but right now that their plan is to stick with him at left tackle, because he's been the backup, to keep Illuminor at right tackle. Evan Neal will be the swing tackle, and that's, they're kind of hurting. They can't afford another injury. They just don't have the depth.
Yeah.
Aaron Stinney, who won a Super Bowl with the Bucks, is their top backup guard, but they're in a tough way. I mean, this is
They're gonna have to
Andrew
help out the
Thomas.
left tackle.
What's that?
Well, I think we'll talk about this with Greg on Sunday. Remember, I
Okay.
was talking to you earlier off air, and I'm thinking they might have to help out the left tackle. But then
Oh,
I
yeah, you
then I
did.
thought about it, Adam. Then I thought about it. I mean, Azudu is not he's not a stiff. I mean, he's played in the NFL. I mean, they were hoping, I think, at this point he'd be a little better, right? This is a kid out of Kentucky. They've had
No,
him
he's out of North Carolina.
North Carolina. That's right. They've had him for a couple years, all right.
He's been on IR both years.
Yeah,
Or the
he's hurt
last
a
two
lot.
years. Yeah,
Yeah.
he's never played. This is his third year. He's been on IR both seasons. Not good.
Yeah, that's right. So I'm just saying, like, normally when you're facing the Eagles and you're down your left tackle, you are up, you know what's creek, right? But honestly, I know that Bryce Huff played a little better against the Browns, but the bar was really low. But
Hmm.
honestly, who's lining up over left tackle and wreaking havoc? If it's not Bryce Huff, if he doesn't have an amazing game, then who's it going to be?
BG. Yeah, maybe they moved BG over there a little bit.
I
I don't
mean,
know.
he's been more efficient over right tackle and inside at nickel. I mean, they could. My point is that
Swing him around. Yeah,
being down your left
sweaty.
tackle against the Eagles this year might not be as catastrophic as it's been in
True,
years
and
past.
they have Mr. Y tight end Chris Manhertz. The only reason why he's in the NFL is because he's a Y tight end.
You better be a wide tight end if your last name is Manhurts.
Well, here's the fun. I actually met him in the Super Bowl. I totally forgot where he went to school. The non-football powerhouse Canisius. It's really known for basketball,
Yes.
and
Mac.
I don't even know if he played football in college. There's a very, yeah. Sean Payton talked about this story about how they found him.
Hmm.
Buffalo signed him as an undrafted free agent, but then New Orleans did their homework on him, and I don't even know what position. I don't know if Buffalo signed him as a tight end,
Mm.
but he's made a lot of money being he's just not a he just only blocks. So on your point, if Azudu struggles, just move Manhurts there, and your guy Theo Johnson of Penn State's their move tight end, and they also have Daniel Bellinger who could do a little bit of both.
I'm gonna guess. Just we know Dable. We know what he likes to do. I mean, these guys want to throw the ball if they can. If they feel like there's a vulnerability there, I'm gonna guess you'll see some chipping early. You'll see some help for Azudu. But if as long as he's holding his own and not completely corrupting the line, they're not gonna sit there and help him out so much until the Eagles show that they can generate a pass rush there. So it'll be an interesting cat and mouse.
And honestly, most coaches think that way.
Yep.
Like although Andy would like, no, I should put an asterisk. Andy is like, hell, I don't care about that.
Yeah, he's like, nah, let's just leave Winston Justice out
There it
there.
is. I know you were going. I had to say that because it used to drive when I would go to watch tape with Cosell and Jaws back in the early 2000s. They were just kind of. I just remember like when I was learning stuff from them, they were really surprised. Then they're like, "Oh, this is just Andy. This is what he does." He goes, "We're going to have five in to block. We're not going to help him." It
Yep.
didn't. I wasn't talking Winston Justice in general. I'm just saying overall. this is what he believes, and
Yes.
a lot of coaches do.
Oh
By the
yeah.
way, Doug
Yeah.
was like that too.
Yeah. And Andy did it again this year with that rookie that they picked in the second round at left tackle that they started the year with, Kingsley Suamaitea.
So
Probably,
Matea, right? Some
yeah,
who got
first few
benched.
games. Yeah,
Yeah,
there he was left on an island a few times. It wasn't
yeah,
working. All right, you're gonna do it, kid. If not, we
yeah.
just replace you.
That's fine. Look, but and as you said, you're right. You just if it doesn't work.
Yeah. All right. So that's the big thing for the Giants. It's like you know how I said the Eagles are one step forward, one step back with their injuries. Well, the Giants get Malik Neighbors back, get Singletary back, but you lose your all pro left tackle. So that'll be tough for them.
Big deal, man. Yeah.
And then it can't be a Giants game, Adam, if they're not completely foobarred with injuries on special teams, as they are seemingly every year. And this one is like the trifecta. I mean, like this is amazing.
I added one to our list. Go ahead. Yeah.
Go ahead. The
All
whole
right. So
trifecta.
so we talked about this on what Wednesday show. Jamie Gillen, the left-footed punter, by the way. He's got a left hamstring injury. He's had an interesting history against the Eagles, so it doesn't look like he's going to play. Matt Hawk is the veteran punter who fills in. I believe he's also a lefty, if I'm not mistaken.
Mm.
Pretty certain of that. Lefty
Is it
punter.
Hawk or Hack?
I think it's Hawk. I think you
Okay,
pronounce
just
it Hawk.
one.
I always thought it was Hack, but it's pronounced Hawk. Graham Gano hurt again. He's on IR. Greg Joseph's pretty good kicker, by the way. He used to be with the Vikings. So then this happened to start the season or early on. Gunnar Olszewski, their punt returner, came over from New England
Mm-hmm.
a couple years ago. He's on IR with a groin injury. Emir Smith Marset, who was drafted by the Vikings, also played for the Chiefs. He's filling in. Olszewski's a better punt returner. So you just mentioned it. They got all sorts of. I don't know what the heck is the deal with their bad luck. It's very strange with specialists.
Yeah. Now they are already short defensively, Kayvon Thibodeau, because he's on AR. He had the with the wrist injury, right?
Yeah, he's on IR.
But his backup's pretty good. You can make an argument that his backup, Azeez Ojulari, who comes in, is a little more explosive, maybe, and has great length and wingspan. I'm not trying to take anything away from Thibodeau, but Ojulari, when healthy, is a explosive player.
Yeah, Ojulari, he's not tall, but he's got long arms and he's explosive. A former second rounder,
Mm-hmm.
like back in 2021. He had 2 sacks last week. The guy's explosive. No, it's in fact, I think Greg would probably say, because I know Greg said Thibodeau's more of a power rusher. Thibodeau's got some stiffness.
Yeah.
Good player though.
Yeah.
Ojulari is more explosive, but he's not big and strong like Thibodeau, so that's an issue. Now, Brian Burns. Now, they seem to be optimistic that he'll play, but he hasn't worked yet. He's got a groin injury. He had a good game last week. Boogie Basham was also drafted, another guy out of the Buffalo system who didn't work at all. He was acquired in a trade. He was a second rounder. Boy, he wasn't good at all. He's the only other backup they have as an edge rusher, except for a former Eagle, Patrick Johnson, who was claimed
I
off.
forgot about Patrick Johnson.
Yep.
That's right.
He's really
Right.
only playing specials, but that's all they got.
Yep. Now I know on the injury report, Dexter Lawrence did not practice Thursday. However, he has put everybody on notice. He has told reporters Sexy
Yeah.
Dexy is playing on Sunday.
I love that
So,
name for
great name.
He's such a good player. Oh, I know we don't usually do rankings, but he's right up there, man. The best defensive players in the National Football League.
Oh, yeah.
He's got to be top 5. Got it. He's
100%. Well, you're not getting an argument from me. I was watching some of their tape. This guy moves people. He's so fast and quick and powerful at that size that it's just there. I think like, you know, who I do this for a living for 20 years. There are certain type of caliber athletes that are extra impressive. You know, when you see that or like a Vita Vea, right? Like someone who just is built differently than most human, or even an Aaron Donald only being like 5'11", right? I think as what Aaron Donald was, and he's so fast.
6, yeah, 6 even. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you just have a special appreciation for guys who just have otherworldly, preternatural abilities like Dexter Lawrence
He
does.
could take over a game. And then Aaron Donald, watching him practice the hands. The coolest thing is, you know, we're pretty lucky in our career to see some special stuff. You and I at that practice when Brady went off, I think it was 25 for 25, but every pass was with anticipation. And I look at watching Aaron Donald's choppy hands in practice at UC Irvine. It's just ridiculous. It's like I've never seen anything like this before.
Yep.
You know, and you just mentioned he's so small, but yet he knew he had to overcome his limitations of length. He had to win somehow, and He's going to be a Hall of Famer.
Yeah, watching Tyreek Hill when we did a couple of years ago when the Eagles, the Dolphins
Yeah,
had that joint practice,
pretty
and it was
cool.
like, whoa. Like you see it on TV, you watch it on tape, but when you
Different up
are
front.
20, 30 yards away from it and see how impressive it is in person, it just blows you away. It's like being on another level.
It's nothing. And the funny thing was, so I met you at Dolphins camp. I also visited the Bucks. I think maybe it was either before or after that we
Uh-huh.
saw the Dolphins. But anyway, I just remember him running the corners ragged for the
Oh,
Bucks. He really literally was doing that the way that he was being used uh,
yeah,
by Mike McDaniel. It was pretty special. Yeah, it is really. And by Malik Neighbors might be one of those guys, man.
very
He,
explosive.
he's better. He moves faster than you think.
Yeah, very explosive. Great, good route runner, good hands. He's dropped a couple this year, but I mean, he gets target 20 times a game. You're going to drop one or two. All right, let's pause real quick. We'll finish this off. Some just last minute notes and observations. First, we're going to hear from our friends at Sky Motor Cars.
Sky Motor Cars in Westchester is a different sort of dealership. All it takes is one look at their Highline pre-owned vehicles that people all over the country want and need. Owner Brett Schulter makes sure you don't spend a dime of your money before you purchase the car. Sky Motor Cars allows you to make all the decisions regarding your next vehicle. At Sky Motor Cars, you never have to spend more than necessary. Visit SkyMotorCars.com today or call 610-918-7225.
And if you stop into Sky Motor Cars out there in Westchester, PA, tell them Adam and Geoff sent you. You will be treated like royalty. And guess what? Even if you forget to say Adam and Geoff sent you, you will still be treated like royalty. There is no better place for customer service when you're looking for a vehicle,
Yep.
whether it's high profile vehicle, low profile, but they have inventory on everything. Make sure you go to Sky Motor Cars. Stop in, see our friend Brett Shoulder. He'll treat you great. If not, go to their website, skymotorcars.com. All right. Here's the concern I have. I was talking to you about.
Oh yeah, you want to go to your film notes? I know you watched tape this week,
Yeah,
right?
this is just a few things that
Okay.
as we talk about this matchup. So I can't remember. I know I'm talking about it with Greg Cosell, maybe one with our Patreon members, and I brought up a play to Greg's attention. It was right after the Eagles went up 10-0 against the Browns. So I think it's second quarter, right? The Browns come out and run a simple off tackle to the left side, and Foreman just gets 12 easy yards up the left side. And I went and watched it over and over on all 22. And I noticed Josh Sweat, who is the edge contain on a run to his side, just jumps inside the offensive tackle and gets completely taken out of the play. And because there's nobody coming down on his side, sometimes you'll see that, but somebody comes down to guard the side. Nobody did that. So he must have broke contain, and I don't know why. And you gave a running back 12 easy yards. And you go back to last year and the chasing sacks issue
Mm.
with the defensive line. My thought, I'm trying to rationalize. Well, did he think that it was going to be a pass because the Eagles had gone up 10-0? That's not really a reason to break contain. You have your responsibilities, you have to abide by them. And the one thing I'm noticing on Sweat, which is why I brought up the whole, even if Andrew Thomas isn't out, can the Eagles still really rush the edges? Is he's still a try hard player. Like he makes tackles, he'll get you a good rush on effort and attempt, but I don't
Yep.
see the get off and
Oh,
the
we talked
ability to
about that.
drive these
Yeah.
guys back like he used to have.
That's what we were told by other teams who've watched his tape. A couple teams that, as a matter of fact, are going to play the Eagles. Two guys that actually agree with me
Mm-hmm.
that he doesn't look like the same player. They think his get off is, as you just mentioned, that's exactly what they said. So that's a concern. And when you're the force player, you're supposed to funnel it inside and do it the right way. That's not
Yeah.
good. And what's interesting about Sweats, he's always been a good run defender. In fact, when he got on the field as a rookie, he's either 18 or 19, whenever they let him play early in his career, he only played on rundowns, and then obviously he got better and then was a pass down guy. But yeah, that's disappointing. So we'll see. We'll see what happens here going forward.
Mm-hmm.
But man, they got to find more consistent pass rush. Huff definitely looked good. Greg talked about that. He noticed him. It was definitely he saw it. Nolan Smith had a couple nice plays, but he's just not there. I don't know
Mm-hmm.
if he'll ever get there, but he's a second year player. He's got time. But they, as you were saying to start the show, they need to find a consistent pass rush. against every team. It can't just be, okay, Cleveland, you have Deshaun Watson, he's a human sack machine. The offensive line was beat up. They got to do it week after week, and they haven't shown they can do that yet.
Yeah, no. And if you're not going to get enough of a pass rush, and if the teams can see on tape already that you're struggling to cover, I could see the Giants trying to throw a little bit of a horizontal game, move neighbors around, try to get him matched up where he can, get him in space. I just don't know and I was watching the Giants tape too, and it's like, man, when they played the Bengals, they really had trouble scoring because they're not a very good offense. So that's not a surprise, but it's not like they Jones got picked off once, but I don't think they had any fumble. They weren't like turning the ball over left and right and crazy. They just really had trouble moving the ball. But then again, they didn't have neighbors. I wonder how much that game might have been different had they had him, because again, the Bengals only scored 17 points. They had trouble scoring too. The Giants defense is pretty tough. This is why I told you at the top of the show, I really have no good feel for how this game is going to go.
Yeah, it's this Eagles team is very hard to figure out. You don't know what you're getting. They barely won last week. Let's call it like it is.
Mm-hmm.
So, and this is a divisional game. We've talked about this for years. Strange things happen when it seems obvious it's not. And the Eagles, it's one thing if they got off to a good start, you felt good about their direction. We just don't know what their direction is right now.
Right. And then just the other concern, and I think we talked about it with Patreon folks, but I don't know about on this platform. 2 straight games where Saquon's pass protection has not been great. We outlined that the play where Hurts got sacked by Joker was a late rotation by Saquon's part and not only that, but even when he got to whoever the blitzer was it Joker? I forget, but either way.
Okay, yes.
Yeah.
Like number 6.
Yeah, and then he just didn't, you didn't hold you didn't anchor, you didn't drive the guy back. It wasn't good. So Saquon, this is something that our Patreon folks said to us, you guys reported this a while back while everybody was saying differently. Everybody was saying Saquon's really good at pass pro. You guys were saying he's not great at pass pro. And so far, the last 2 games, yeah, whoever said that he was good is now seeing that that's not true. He's not terrible. He's just not good at
doesn't use his
all it takes, right, is like 2 or 3 times of not picking up the right guy, and you can get your quarterback on the ground, and that could be the turnover or the sack or the fumble or whatever that changes the game.
Yeah, there were 2 things with Saquon that were stood out with the Giants, we were told. We put this on our shows in the spring. Actually, quite frankly, we put it together in March, actually. As soon as they signed him, we found out that pre-snap scanning, he's not good at it. He's just very consistent because you have to ID pass rushers. And he does it for a guy who's built like a rock. He doesn't use his body the right way. He doesn't always line up correctly, misalign sometimes. And this one was just bad. I mean, you got to be, as Greg said when we did that show this week, it was a touchdown. I mean, Devontae won the route, and Jalen loves to throw the ball deep, so I'm sure it would have been a touchdown. But he's got to be better. He's just really inconsistent at it. And see, what happens is on social media, remember Norv Turner told me this. Norv and I were talking at Raiders camp. So he made a fair point. People see a play that looks great on social, and they just assume that this is right. This is the way it always is. Can't do that. Social, you got to be very careful with social media, believing what you see.
There you go. All right, let's finish it off with the workouts. Anything to make of the 2 workouts?
Yeah, so quickly here. So the Eagles, with all of their workouts through week 7, a majority of them have been with corners. I don't know why. So they worked out a guy who went to your school, Penn State, Tariq Castro Fields.
Yep, Tariq Castro Fields.
He was a 6th rounder for the Niners 2 years ago, never really made it. And now this guy that we're talking about now, who's Braden Daniels. So I have interesting stuff on him. So was told that the old staff with Washington, Ron Rivera had personnel control, severely overdrafted this guy. He had basically 7th round and undrafted free agent grades. He's an athlete, but he's not a really good football player. And this new staff.
How often do we say this, by the way? I mean, it's like Davion Taylor or somebody.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah.
Yep.
And he shouldn't have been drafted, if at all, 7th round. And it's bad when you cut a guy after 1 year. This new front office didn't want any part of the guy.
Wow.
He went to
I remember.
TCU.
That's right. I remember this. Was this a TCU kid? He's super raw. This is a.
This is a. This is a. This is a. This is a. This is a. This is a. This is a. This is a. This is a. This is a. This is a. This is a. This is a. This is a. This is a. This is a. This is a. This is a. This is a. This is a. This is a. This is a. This is a. This is a. This is a. This is a. This is a. This is a. This is a. This is a. This is a. This is a. This is a. This is a. This is a. This is a. This is a. This is a. This is a. This is a. This is a. This is a. This is a. This is a. This is a. This is a. This is a. This is a. This is a. This is a. This is a. This is a. This is a. This is a. This is a. This is a. This is a. This is a. This is a. This is a. This is a. This is a. This is a. This is a. This is a. This is a. This is a. This is a. This is a. This is a. This is a. This is a. sometimes you take a guy who's raw like Jalen Hunt, and you see, okay, what could he be by year 3? That's what Hunt, you're looking way down the road with him.
Mhm.
With Braden Daniels, it wasn't even like that. They kind of knew after a series of months, as we're told, that they got they kind of knew they got it wrong. And then this new step, they want any parts of the guy. So, and he's on a workout tour. So is Castro Fields, the corner. So this is what happens a lot when guys are trying to make it. Teams bring him in, and eventually go to a practice squad. If not, think about it, a guy like Daniels in the 4th round. It tells you that they really reach. He can't even get on a practice squad. Not good.
That's really, that is a reach and a half. Absolutely.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, good stuff. Well, they worked out Castro Fields because he last played for the Niners, and the Eagles have to bring in every former Niner for a workout. So
It's true, but he's not a 3rd rounder. Yeah, if he was a 3rd rounder, wow.
Not a running back, not a 3rd rounder, but still bring him in.
Yeah.
All right, that's going to do it for this episode of Inside the Birds. Of course, we'll have way more, just an entire comprehensive breakdown of this game on Sunday with Greg Cosell. Look forward to doing that. But that'll do it for this episode of Inside the Birds, the leading podcast in Eagles intel. And as always, we thank you for flying with us inside the Birds. Be sure to check out our friends at PHLSportsNation.com. They're enhancing the fans' experience with their coverage of all Philadelphia sports teams. For the fan, by the fan is their motto. So make sure you check them out at PHLSportsNation.com and on Twitter at PHLSportsNation.